All right, let's jump into this deep dive. Superheroes. We're talking powers, possibilities, and how much of it is actually like grounded in real science? You sent us this article, it's called SRAN OAO, and it got us thinking, like, which superpowers could we maybe actually see in our lifetime? We'll be covering all sorts of stuff: super strength, flight, even invisibility, and rapid healing. It's gonna be wild. Okay, first up, the classic. Super strength. I mean, it's practically a superhero staple, but is there any science behind it?
Well, human muscle on its own has its limits. But there's this tech, exoskeletons, they're already changing the game.
Exoskeletons. Sounds a bit, sci-fi, doesn't it?
It does, but companies like Exobionics are building them right now. Workers can lift crazy heavy things safely, and they even help people with disabilities get moving again.
Wow, real-world applications already. That's pretty amazing. But what about, like, boosting our own muscles? Is there a way to make them stronger naturally?
That's where myostatin inhibitors come in. Myostatin is a protein that actually holds back muscle growth. Scientists think that by blocking it, we could potentially unlock way more strength.
So, like, Captain America strong.
That's the idea, though research is still early.
Yeah.
And imagine the implications, right? Athletics, the military, everyday life, everything changes.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Hulk-level smashing is still out of reach, though, right? Even with stronger muscles, the energy needed for that would be insane. Okay, let's talk flight. Who hasn't dreamt of flying? I mean, there are real jetpacks now, right?
There are. Jetpack Aviation and others are making them. But think about it. Noise, fuel, they can't fly for very long. Not exactly practical for your morning commute.
So, no personal jetpacks anytime soon. Bummer.
Maybe not jetpacks, but what about magnetic levitation? Like those maglev trains, using magnets to lift and move things.
Hold on, are you saying magnetic suits that let us hover or glide?
It's a possibility,
Yeah.
though it needs some serious tech advances.
Right.
But hey, it's not totally crazy.
That's pretty wild. Okay, so maybe not Superman soaring through the sky yet, but we're getting there. What about super speed, like flash fast?
Light speed, no way. But we're pushing the limits of human speed. Biomechanics, prosthetics, those running blades athletes use, they're blurring the lines.
Right, so better movements, better tech, helping us go faster.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Physics and energy. We just can't generate the power needed for, like, superhuman speed. Not yet, at least.
All right, so breaking the sound barrier is off the table for now. Now for something really cool: invisibility. Is that even remotely possible?
It might surprise you, but invisibility cloaks aren't just fantasy anymore. Metamaterials are changing things.
Metamaterials. Okay, I need a quick explanation on those.
They're basically artificial materials designed to do things no natural material can. By tweaking their structure, scientists can bend light around an object.
So you're making it look like the object isn't even there. That's trippy.
Yep, like a stream flowing around a rock. It's an illusion, but a powerful one. Prototype cloaks are already being tested, mostly for military stuff. Think invisible soldiers, vehicles, blending right in.
Whoa, that's straight out of a spy movie. So what's holding us back from full-on Harry Potter cloaks?
Well, most cloaks only work with certain types of light. And making them bigger, portable, that's tough. A cloak to hide a tank, that's a long way off.
Okay, so true invisibility is still a work in progress, but we're on the path. What about rapid healing, like Wolverine style? Is that even in the realm of possibility?
Instant healing, not quite. But regenerative medicine is making huge strides. Stem cell therapy, gene editing, it's revolutionizing things.
Yeah, those are like the rock stars of medical research right now. What are they actually doing to help us heal faster?
Well, they're growing organs and tissues in labs. Tracheas, bladders, they've already implanted them successfully. And research on hearts, lungs, it's all happening.
Hang on, so we're talking about growing full-blown organs and putting them in people? That's insane. What about gene editing? How does that play into this?
Gene editing, especially this thing called CRISPR, it lets us tinker with our own genes. By targeting specific ones, scientists think we can boost healing, maybe even regrow tissues.
So not just replacing parts, but making our bodies heal better on their own. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's early days, lots of challenges, but the potential is huge.
It's amazing to think about all of this. Science is getting closer and closer to making these superpowers real. But now, let's get a little mind-bendy. What about telepathy and telekinesis? Is there any science behind those?
Well, we're not reading minds or moving things with our thoughts yet, but neuroscience is making some incredible breakthroughs with brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs.
I've heard of BCIs, but how do they connect to like telepathy and telekinesis?
BCIs create a direct link between the brain and devices. Right now, they help people with disabilities control prosthetic limbs, wheelchairs, even computers, just by thinking. But the potential goes way beyond that.
Hold on, are you saying we could use BCIs to communicate directly with each other, like mind to mind?
It's not impossible.
Yeah.
If we can translate brain signals into digital information and back again, then yeah, telepathy-like communication could be a reality.
Okay, that's just wow. What about telekinesis, moving stuff with your mind?
That's tougher. But researchers are using BCIs to control robotic arms and stuff with amazing accuracy. So it's kind of like a basic form of telekinesis.
So instead of moving things directly, we'd use BCIs to control devices that do it for us.
Exactly. It's like extending our abilities with technology.
This is all so incredible. It feels like the world of superpowers is less about fantasy and more about the future of science and tech. Okay, last one, enhanced intelligence. Could we ever boost our brain power to like Tony Stark levels?
There are a few things being explored. Nootropics, sometimes called smart drugs, and TMS.
Are nootropics like a real-life limitless pill?
Not quite that dramatic. They claim to improve memory, focus, all that.
Hmm.
But the science is still out on how well they work, and there can be side effects.
So no guaranteed genius shortcut. What about TMS?
TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation, uses magnetic pulses to stimulate specific parts of the brain. It's been used to treat depression, but researchers are also looking at it for cognitive enhancement.
So stimulating the brain to make us think better.
That's the idea. But like any tech, using it ethically is super important.
This deep dive has been amazing. It's mind-blowing to see how close science is getting to making these superpowers a reality.
It's a really exciting time for science and tech. Who knows what's just around the corner?
But with all this potential comes some big questions like, what are the ethics of all this? What happens to society if these things become real? When we come back, we'll be tackling those questions head on. We'll be looking at the ethical side of superpowers and what the future might hold. So stick around for part 2 of this deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the science behind superpowers.
We've covered a lot of ground already, haven't we? Exoskeletons, gene editing, even invisibility, and those brain-computer interfaces. But we're not done yet. There's so much more to explore, and science is pushing the boundaries further every day.
Exactly. We're going to look at even more advancements that are blurring the lines between science fiction and reality and talk about both the incredible potential and the challenges they bring up.
So where do we go from here? What other areas of science are like really pushing the limits of what humans can do?
Well, one area that's both fascinating and kind of controversial is biohacking.
Biohacking. Okay, that sounds intense.
It can be. Biohacking is basically a DIY approach to biology and human augmentation. People are using technology and biology itself to enhance or modify their own capabilities.
So people are taking their bodies into their own hands, like experimenting with ways to improve themselves physically and mentally?
Yeah, pretty much. Some biohackers experiment with implanted devices, genetic modifications, even sensory augmentation.
That sounds exciting, but also a little scary. Can you give us some examples of what biohackers are actually doing?
Sure, some biohackers are implanting magnets in their fingertips so they can sense magnetic fields. It's almost like a sixth sense.
Whoa, that's like straight out of X-Men. What other kinds of biohacks are there?
Others are trying out near-infrared implants so they can see in the dark, kind of like night vision goggles, but built in.
So biohacking is like you can choose your own superpower.
In a way, yeah, it's about pushing your own potential. But it's important to remember that biohacking is still very experimental. There are risks, ethical questions about safety, and even what it means to be human. It's not something to jump into lightly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what about robotics? How does that fit into this whole superpower thing?
Robotics is playing a huge role. We already talked about prosthetics, how they're helping athletes run faster.
Right, but prosthetics are just one part of robotics, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Robotic limbs are getting incredibly advanced. People can control them with their thoughts. They have amazing dexterity. It's really impressive.
So it's not just about replacing limbs, it's about like exceeding normal human abilities.
Exactly. And some researchers are even working on robotic exoskeletons that could give people superhuman strength and endurance.
Like a real-life Iron Man suit.
That's the dream. We're not quite there yet, but the progress is amazing. Imagine construction workers lifting massive objects with ease, firefighters moving through dangerous areas with super strength and protection, or people who have trouble walking being able to move freely.
Wow, the potential applications are mind-blowing. Okay, but what about something like teleportation? Is that even remotely possible?
Real teleportation, like beaming from one place to another, that's still science fiction.
So no teleporting anytime soon.
Probably not. But the idea of quantum teleportation, that's a real thing.
Quantum teleportation, that sounds even more complicated.
It is complex. Basically, it's not about transporting matter, but information. You transfer the quantum state of a particle without actually moving the particle itself.
Okay, so we're not beaming people yet, but this could be huge for things like quantum computers and communication.
Exactly. It's amazing how these seemingly impossible ideas can actually have some basis in science.
It really is. Okay, let's talk about material science. Are there any connections to superpowers there?
Definitely. Material science is constantly evolving, and researchers are developing materials with properties that seem almost superhuman.
Like what?
We already talked about metamaterials for invisibility.
Right, the light bending stuff.
Yeah. But scientists are also working on self-healing materials that can repair themselves, just like Wolverine.
So no more cracked phone screens. Sign me up.
Exactly. And think about what that could mean for everything, from electronics to buildings and bridges.
That's amazing. Are there any other super materials out there?
Oh yeah, tons. There are materials that are super strong and incredibly light, like graphene. It's often called a wonder material.
Graphene, what's so special about it?
Graphene is a single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a honeycomb pattern. It's stronger than steel, super flexible, and conducts electricity better than copper.
Wow, it's like the ultimate multitasking material.
It really is. It could revolutionize so many industries, from electronics and energy storage to aerospace and even medicine.
This is all so mind-blowing. It seems like science is always pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Absolutely. And who knows what other incredible materials and maybe even superpowers we'll discover in the future.
This deep dive has been amazing. It's incredible to see how science is making superhero powers more and more realistic.
It really shows the power of human ingenuity, our curiosity, and our desire to keep pushing the limits.
But with all this amazing progress, there are some big questions that come up, like what are the ethical implications of all this? What does it mean for society if we actually start to have these superpowers?
Those are important questions, and we need to start thinking about them now. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore those ethical considerations and look ahead to the future of superpowers.
Okay, so we've been talking about all these incredible advancements, right? Stuff that could actually give us superpowers.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing, the stuff that's becoming possible.
But now it's time to, step back a bit. What about the ethics of all this? Like, what happens when we start messing with the very nature of what it means to be human?
That's the big question, isn't it? With great power comes great responsibility and all that.
Exactly. So what are some of the ethical concerns we should be thinking about?
Well, access is a huge one. Will everyone have access to these technologies, or will it just be the wealthy and powerful?
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't want to create a society where only a select few get to be superhumans.
Right. And then there's safety. How do we make sure these technologies are used responsibly and ethically? How do we minimize the risks?
It's almost like we need a superhero ethics committee or something.
Something like that, yeah. We need to really think about the potential consequences, both intended and unintended. Gene editing, for example. It has the potential to cure diseases, but what about designer babies? That's a whole other can of worms.
Definitely. And what about the impact on society? Like, how will these technologies change how we live, how we work, how we interact with each other?
That's hard to predict, but it's something we need to discuss. For example, if brain-computer interfaces become common, what happens to our privacy, our sense of self?
Whoa, yeah, those are some deep questions. We need to be thinking about not just the science, but the big picture impact.
Absolutely. And another thing to consider is that these technologies could actually make existing inequalities worse. Imagine if only the rich can afford to enhance themselves, leaving the poor further behind.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. It seems like we need to approach all of this with a lot of caution as well as excitement.
I totally agree. We need to be aware of the ethical challenges just as much as we're excited about the possibilities.
So what's the takeaway here? What should we, as individuals, as a society, be thinking about as we move forward?
I think the key is to have these conversations. Open, honest conversations, considering different perspectives, and putting ethics right alongside scientific progress.
We need to ask ourselves tough questions about the kind of future we want to create and make sure these advancements benefit everyone, not just a select few.
That's the goal, right? Using science and technology to make the world a better place for everyone.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've explored the science behind superpowers, talked about the ethical challenges, and really started to imagine what the future could hold.
It's been a great conversation.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has got you thinking about the incredible possibilities and the responsibilities that come with unlocking these amazing abilities.
The future isn't something that just happens. It's something we create.
So let's keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep imagining. The future is in our hands. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.